really honored to be able to speak to all of you today. As I'm sure we all do from time to time, I've been thinking a lot about my life lately, my contributions, my successes, my failures, my disappointments, my expectations. How do we even measure how we're doing? There's no test or evaluation. Am I passing? Am I failing? I can't really judge it by someone else's life because this is mine and mine alone. It's my experience and it's not supposed to look like someone else's. And are we even meant to judge it or just experience it? Without a guidebook or a manual, isn't life really just a matter of our perception of what it should be? Perception is how we each as individuals receive information and interpret it through each of our senses. It can change from moment to moment and can be heavily influenced by our attitude, our experiences, opinions, prejudices, emotions, our energy level at any given moment, and even whether we're tired or hungry can unintentionally change our perception of a situation. How we see situations is up to us, as is how we deal with them. And perception is the funny thing. It always makes me laugh that you can talk to, siblings that were raised by the same parents, and each of them can have a different take on what life was like growing up. So much so that you may even wonder if they even lived in the same house. We're each unique, and so are our perceptions. Therefore, we can be affected differently by different situations. Different personalities, different thoughts, different sensitivity, different views, all equal different perceptions. As we grow, we develop a perception of self, and that perception can heavily affect our attitude about life in general and how we allow ourselves to experience it. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't believe I did that or I said that. We've all had negative thoughts at one time or another, but we're not born that way. I doubt a newborn baby thinks it's stupid or ugly. I'm sure all it's thinking is, wow, how did I get here and when do we eat? So where do those harmful thoughts even come from? A young, otherwise happy child goes to school for the first time and comes home upset because another child called him stupid. His mother asks him if he is indeed stupid, and the child becomes angry and says no. So the mother asks, then why do you care what someone else thinks? You know who you are so smart, and you are so beautiful. She tries to encourage him to stand in his own truth, but that bully managed to find an open door into that young boy's head. Then it was as if the boy held the door open for all the other negative thoughts to flood in. And isn't this how it is for most of us? All it takes is one negative comment to undo the hundreds of compliments I'm sure you've received in your lifetime. It hurts us, and instead of letting it go, we hang on to it. It may not even be a comment. It could be how someone makes you feel. Even a parent who doesn't give you the space to work things out for yourself may unintentionally leave you thinking that you're stupid or incapable. Or perhaps your boss, rather than encouraging you, constantly criticizes the way you handle work situations. Since we either lack confidence or never develop the skills to deal with it, even that one act can cause a shifting of our perception of self. Their perception becomes our own, which becomes our reality. Their voice in our head eventually becomes our voice. If only we could recognize that bullies are flawed and that they inflict pain because they themselves are often in pain, and often well-meaning family and friends think they're being helpful when they're not. If only we can simply ignore it. Can you even recall being that young, carefree child before allowing other people's criticisms of you to get into your head? Think for a moment who that child was, who you were. Not your experiences, just who you were at your core, how happy you probably once were seeing life through the eyes of a child. When and why did we lose being carefree? It makes you wonder who's actually in control of our thoughts. Who is it we listen to, and whose opinion is it that we value above our own? Is it your parents, your spouse, your boss, your church, a bully? We come into this world with free will, which enables us to weigh options and make choices. And once you figure that you alone are responsible for your choices, and that by simply shifting your perception, you can create a more joyful life. Your perception and your choices are your power. If we allow unwelcome thoughts into our head, then we allow it to become our reality. When we give our power and control over to someone else, it causes unrest within us because each of us come into the world already knowing who we are. We come into the world with an understanding of what unconditional love is, We've experienced it, and it's what we spend our lifetime seeking out. We just need to stand in our own truth and get back in touch with the core of our being, our soul, our higher consciousness, connect to the divine source of unconditional love, and love ourselves unconditionally. So although it's nice to be thought of, what other people think of you is really none of your business, because it should have no effect on you, not if you're truly standing in your truth. You know your strengths and your weaknesses. Working through those are why we're here in the first place. You don't need someone else to point it out. And those who do, I'm sure, have enough of their own stuff to work out, and it's more about them than it is about you. Maybe you're just the mirror reflecting what it is they themselves need to work through and aren't yet ready to accept. If we allow others' negativity into our being, then that's what we're choosing to nurture. It will grow, and in the process, it will not only take away your power, but it will hinder your growth. What if instead we tell ourselves that the only opinion of ourselves that matters is our own? What if we just stood up for ourselves? What if we stood up to that bully in our head, even if that bully is you? We simply need to vow never to give someone else permission to make us feel bad, including those closest to you who have the greatest ability to hurt you. And the opinion of someone to whom you don't matter shouldn't matter to you. Our Creator has a purpose for us, and it may not always be clear, but none of us are a waste of time or space. You are just as important as anyone else, and our Creator chose you to be here because your contribution matters. Changing your perception can not only empower you with the ability to love yourself, but it can also bring about healing. A young girl raised by her mother with an absentee father grows up believing that if her father was around, her imaginary knight in shining armor, that he would protect her from all the bad things that ever happened to her. She imagines he comes to save her, but when he never comes, her perception of him changes, and instead of being her knight in shining armor, he becomes someone she blames for all the bad things that ever happened to her. Why isn't she worthy of his love? How broken she must be. She becomes more angry and more bitter, yet still longs for his affection. When she gets older, she learns to protect herself and realizes that she doesn't need a knight in shining armor to save her. She can save herself. She realizes that she is worthy of love, and his lack of affection is more about his inability than about her worth. She's sad for him, really, and all that he missed out on, because there's no going back. There's no do-overs when it comes to raising children. In her higher thinking, she comes to realize that although his life script may have included giving her life, it didn't necessarily include being a part of hers. Perhaps because of free will, he chose not to be a father, or perhaps it was all a part of his lessons to be learned here. And sometimes there's a high cost for some of those lessons. And because with age comes wisdom, she realized all that she imagined him to be and had absolutely nothing to do with the reality of who he was. And who he was is simply another energetic being having a human experience, someone who had his own stuff to work out and was on his own journey to learn what he needed to during this lifetime. It had nothing to do with her at all, really. Perhaps she even agreed to it as part of her own life script so that she could have the greatest growth in learning to love herself. Once she shifted her perception, she could no longer find fault with him, nor stay angry at him. In fact, she was better able to understand him. And so she chose to forgive him and to love him, because love feels so much better than all the other ugly stuff we tend to carry. We can't put the onus of our joy on someone else. No one else can love us in all the ways we need to be loved. They can only love us as best as they know how. Accept it without expectations. Love yourself in all the ways you're lacking and in all the other ways that someone else may not be able to provide it to you. Love with every fiber of your being. We're all here to learn and to expand our thinking. So once the perception changes, so do the relationships. You could stay angry your entire life, accomplish nothing, and blame someone else for it. Or you can realize that at any point in your life, when it becomes important enough to you and you realize you deserve it, you are totally capable of having the life you want. Once your perception changes, forgiving becomes easier. And once you let go, you discover not only more joy, but a remarkable sense of peace and freedom. So look for the beauty in all things. Look for something each day to be grateful for. Instead of a weed and a dandelion, look for the wish. Focus on your strengths and beauty, and remember that the only perception of you that matters is your own. Protect, love, and nurture the beautiful child that you are. And if you don't see yourself as the beautiful, miraculous being that our divine creator created, right along with the trees and the butterflies and the buffalo and the dolphins and the clouds in the sky, then it's time to clear the mind of the negative thoughts and replace each one with self-love and self-encouragement, because you too are a perfectly imperfect being entitled to experience all there is to experience in this human form. Joy is your birthright. You are so loved and so worthy. I have no doubt that's our Creator's perception of you, and I truly hope it's your perception too. Those are my thoughts, and I thank you for listening.